Hello, I'm Samantha Nolan-Smith, and this is Lessons in Visibility. In this show, we ask what can be learned from the two faces of visibility. The first involves stepping forward and choosing to be seen and heard. The second opens you up to new ways of seeing and hearing the world around you. Welcome to the show. So today we're going to talk about the process of embodying your message. I think this is such an important aspect of visibility for anybody who has something they want to say in the world and is finding a way to say that either through their business or through a movement that you're a part of or that you're the founder of, whether it's through a not-for-profit organization that you run or you're doing that through your creative work, through your art, through your writing, through any content that you're creating. What I mean when I talk about embodying your message is shifting from talking about your topic and being knowledgeable about your topic to being a living, breathing expression of it. And the reason this is important is that the embodiment piece is the piece that actually ignites genuine transformation. First of all, for yourself, and then for other people. So if you think about your community, you think about your audience or your clients, your students, they can hear something at the level of the mind in the sense that information's coming in, and that is one level that starts the process of creating change in their lives. They might start to think about it. They might change one of their ideas about the topic. They might start to shift a lens or create an opening for a new way. But then the next layer of it, and this is why we do so much work inside Women Speaking Up around habits, because it's one thing to shift a thought and it's another thing to shift behavior. And so after you have shared something and you have sparked a new way of perceiving things, then the next question is, well, how do people come to live as an expression of that? And as a coach, this is where most coaches certainly want to be, at that level of not just encouraging people to think differently, but also to actually act differently. So you might have heard that old saying, do as I say, not as I do. And the learning around embodying your message is shifting from that and not being do as I say, but do as I do, be as I be. And there are many ways that we can move into that. As I said, first of all, thinking differently. Sometimes that's enough to start to change the way we do things. Often we need another layer of habit change where we deliberately focus on habits, understanding how they work, understanding how to shift them, and then moving through that. Again, that's something that I teach inside Women Speaking Up. But the fastest way that I have ever come across creating change, permanent, lasting change, is through the sitting with somebody, being in the presence of somebody who is embodied in what you're trying to move toward. So recently I've been working with a number of people in a one-to-one setting and have been receiving lots and lots of really beautiful feedback. Oh my goodness, things have changed so much. Can't believe the shift from where I was a week ago to where I am now. Somebody was saying, you are genuinely a magician. And the secret to that is obviously there's skill there. Obviously, I know what I'm doing. I've been working one-to-one with people and I've been working with group coaching for many, many years. So the transformations happen through that skill level, of course. And what makes it happen really effortlessly and much more quickly is the embodiment piece. As we're sitting together, they're catching the energy. They're catching something that's in my beingness about visibility, which then helps them to rest into it, to know themselves as it, and then move through blocks more quickly. And each of us have this same capacity to be the embodiment of the thing that you're here to share. In spiritual circles, you might be familiar with this, where if you have ever gone into and really understood what it is to learn from the guru. And, this term I don't use very often at all because I think it's wildly misunderstood in the West and I think it's misused. And so without a lot deeper conversation, it's not always wise to use that terminology. So I'm approaching this conversation with caution. But the traditional Eastern approach to sitting with the guru is that the lessons come from being in the presence of the teacher. That you sit, and traditionally you would spend many, many weeks, months, years in the presence of the teacher and learn, obviously through their words, obviously through observing their behavior. But primarily what you're doing is you're catching their energy. You're catching the presence of them, and it's influencing how you show up, how you be in the world. And all of us has this teaching capacity. All of us has this capacity to transmit the embodied message to our students, to our clients, to our audience. So the reason that this is an important thing to share from a visibility perspective is often we can get caught up in tactics and trying to work out, well, is this exactly the perfect language to use? And when you're in the full embodiment of your message, the language is going to show up differently at different times with different people, because what you're doing is you're fully present in the moment, you're emanating the message, and then the language is coming out depending on who is in the room with you. So then the question of, have I got my language exactly right, kind of fades away. Whilst consistency in messaging is really important, what is more important is consistency in beingness. The more that you are consistent as the message, the more you can play with the various different ways of expressing that, and it still lands, it resonates, it lands for each individual person. So if you've ever listened to the spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle, for example, throughout his career, he has spoken about presence, the power of presence. He has used millions of different sentences to describe that. He has used lots of different ways to come at it, but ultimately he's talking about the same thing. And when you start to recognize, oh, this is what I'm doing, I'm actually in the process of embodying my message, what happens is you stop beating yourself up about the fact that you might have come at the message in multiple different ways, that you might have explored it through a specific angle and then come back and then explored it through a different angle and thought that, oh, these are all different things. So let's give an example. Let's say your message is about kindness. One way you might have expressed that is you might have talked about connection to heart center. And then another way you might have spoken about that is you might have thought of something really practical and tangible for people to do, and you might have come at it through that angle. Then you might have, for example, learned about the Enneagram and then thought, well, how does kindness come into the Enneagram? How do different Enneagram points think about kindness or approach kindness? And then you might have wanted to just tell stories about simple acts of kindness. And if you're not coming at this through the lens of, oh, I'm embodying this message of kindness, you might not see the connection between these things. You might say to yourself, oh, well, I've been learning about the Enneagram, and then I've been doing this sort of practical thing over here, and then I've been telling stories over here, and then I've been talking about being heart-centered over here, and these things don't seem to have any connection to one another. But the gel or the glue that brings all these things together is understanding your umbrella concept, and then understanding, oh, I'm working to embody this, and I'm exploring the different elements of it, and I'm becoming more of it as I come at this through different angles. So that's something that's really important to know when you're feeling like you're beating yourself up. Why am I going around over here and over here and over here? Once you understand the message that brings these things together and understand what I've actually been doing is coming at it through different angles so that I am in the fullness of the message. I am expressing the fullness of the message. Then you're kinder to yourself, you stop beating yourself up, and you realize, oh, I haven't been just wasting time. I've actually been working through a process of embodiment. What it also does is it helps you in those moments where you feel like you're going backwards. And I say going backwards in inverted commas because what's actually often happening is we're learning what we need to teach. And as we become the teacher, we deepen in the message, we deepen in the topic. And that often feels like, oh, I'm going back to first principles. But you're not going back as the student, you're going back as a partially embodied version of the message, which means you're going to go back multiple times to the core principles. You're going to explore and examine different ways that they show up for you, and then you're going to develop different ways of expressing that for the benefit of other people. But what I often hear people say is, am I a fraud at this point? Do I even know what I'm talking about anymore? Why am I coming to you and saying to you that I'm having problem with the very thing that I'm teaching my students? And the reason is that you're in the process of further embodiment of that message. And so where I come into that is helping you to make that more visible to yourself, first of all, and then to share it with more people or in a more potent way with the people that you're already sharing it with. When you find yourself revisiting a core message or a core principle or a core experience that your students, your audience, your clients are having, and you had thought that you were at a point where you were able to teach this, and then you find yourself feeling like you're right back there where they are and asking yourself, but do I even know anything anymore in this area? This is an excellent moment. It's a moment where you're being called to greater embodiment. It's not that you're being fraudulent, it's that you're deepening and expanding and becoming the very essence of that message. So that is really what I want to encourage you to sit with, to think about the process that you're going through to build out your movement, your business, your organization, to be curious about what does the embodiment process look like for me? How am I coming to embody this message? Whatever your message is, whether it's around connection or creativity or inequality or motherhood or inner peace, the message itself becomes more potent the more that you are able to be that message. And in order to be that message, the universe, your soul, the highest and best version of yourself is going to present you with opportunities to deepen in your understanding of the topic and in your lived expression of that topic. So I hope that both helps you to understand perhaps some of the experiences you've been having, but also encourages you to really fall into this process of embodying your message. It's a beautiful thing that we get to do in this century, to really consciously embody a message in this way, to share with so many more people the thing that we're here to share. It brings you into the fullness of your potential in a really beautiful, gentle, loving, deeply transformative way. And when we are able to embrace that, the changes that we create, the transformation that is made possible on this planet is so much greater than what's possible through short-term change, pushing to make change happen, cajoling ourselves, using willpower. None of that is permanent transformation. That is all temporary. And if you want to go deeper with this work, this is what we do inside Women Speaking Up. I would love to support you in this process of both identifying, well, what is this message that I'm working to embody, of seeing how all these separate parts that you're not quite sure how they all come together, seeing where they cohere and what it is you are really here to share. Sometimes I feel like my job is one of just helping you put the puzzle together and gently guiding you to say, see, here is the picture. You're already creating it, but sometimes we need somebody to reveal to us. We just place one further piece in, or we move the puzzle around a little bit and you suddenly see, oh, that's what I've been doing this whole time. And then to be mentored through the process of embodying that message. So if that sounds like something that you would benefit from, then come on over to Women Speaking Up, join us today, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks for listening to Lessons in Visibility. If you'd like to connect in other places, come on over to theschoolofvisibility.com. And you can also find us at The School of Visibility on Instagram, Substack, Facebook, and Threads. Lessons in Visibility is produced by the School of Visibility on the land of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri people. I acknowledge the peaceful legacy of custodianship that tens of thousands of years of coexistence with the land has bestowed on us all. And I note the visibility journey that remains unfinished. Voice, treaty, truth.